Check out monorail.com, America's affordable investment app, made for conservatives who want to keep their hard-earned money with companies that share their value. Download the Monorail app today. Join Monorail. Hello, everybody. Dennis Prager here, and a good Monday to you. And, of course, I hope you had a good weekend. I expected, well, I didn't say I can't say I expected, but I would not have been surprised had there been some massive run on banks for people to take their money out, with the Silicon Valley Bank going under. And first, the announcements from the government that they would not bail the bank out. The bank, I think this could be universally acknowledged, the bank was more preoccupied with carbon emissions than with running a bank. Please know that this is going to be the case. Woke policies will be the case for more and more professions. Medical schools like Indiana University Medical School, I will talk to you about that later, are telling students, are you ready? In a medical school, do not use the words male and female at a medical school. There is no such thing as male and female. There are just people who have a uterus and a cervix, and there are people who have testicles and a penis, etc. That's it. That is a medical school. Airlines are now hiring, like at United and Southwest, they are hiring based on color and sex more than they are on competence. And banks are now being run more on what is your policy with regard to LGBTQ than what is your policy vis-a-vis protecting the savings of your depositors. Everything the left touches, it destroys. Banks should not be exempted from that rule. Everything the left touches, it destroys. I used to say everything the left touches, it ruins, and now I would say destroy is the more accurate term, and there is nothing left after destruction. Let me tell you a little about this bank, this Silicon Valley Bank. Oh, cool. That is from the Silicon Valley Bank, the head, right? The head of, what is it? To make sure that the bank is solvent. I'll talk about that in a moment. Collapsed lenders from the Daily Mail. Silicon Valley Bank operated without, that's it, risk officer. I think it's the risk officer. This is the person, you have to understand, who should be in charge of the issue of risks that the bank is taking so as to protect those who invest in the bank. There are two people banks have to protect: investors in the bank and depositors. Collapsed lender Silicon Valley Bank operated without a chief risk officer between April 2022 and January 2023, while the operation's United Kingdom-based head of risk stands accused of prioritizing pro-diversity initiatives over her actual role. Not surprising, it is a female. I point that out regularly. Women are disproportionately left-wing and disproportionately hurting children and many other areas of life. It's amazing what you can say about men, but if you say a critical word, even if it's completely factual about women, then of course you're a hater, which is a way of saying you can only criticize men. Women are uncriticizable. And that is exactly what they say. That is a left-wing position because truth is not a left-wing value. So is it true that women are disproportionately ruining children with robbing them of innocence? Of course it is. How could it not be? They're disproportionately, wildly so, kindergarten teachers, elementary school teachers, and librarians. And now, in many other professions, these woke women. SVB's former head of risk, Laura Izurita, who formerly performed a similar role for Capital One, left the bank in April 2022. She wasn't replaced until January 2023 when the bank hired Kim Olson. SVB has an impressive record. This is what she said when she was hired. Kim Olson. SVB has an impressive track record of sound growth and remaining true to its strategy of serving the innovation economy. Do you know what the innovation economy is? No, what does she mean by it? I'm not being cute. What does she mean, serving the innovation economy?
Silicon Valley, so it's
oh, I see, because it's Silicon Valley, and they innovate censorship. I want to say that is their greatest innovation in Silicon Valley, where the tech companies reside. Has been, for the first time in American history, widespread censorship. I am excited to lead SVB's outstanding risk management team. It's an outstanding risk management team, as we have now learned, and continue to build SVB's risk management framework and capabilities in this important next chapter of the firm's trajectory. God, do you know AI would have come up with a better statement? Right? Doesn't it sound like an artificial intelligence thing?
Yeah.
If you said artificial intelligence, give me a two-sentence paragraph that the head of risk operations of a bank would say, this is what you would get. Yeah, isn't that fascinating? Meanwhile, Jay Ursipa, this is another female, by the way, named Jay. Why is this female named Jay? Because she describes herself as a queer person of color from a working-class background. She is the chief risk officer for the bank in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Describes herself, as I said, as a queer person of color from a working-class background. Organized a host. That really still doesn't explain why she's J. Because that, if she were non-binary or trans, but she's not. She only meets person of color, female, and queer. So she doesn't quite hit the jackpot of victimized groups. Or what is their word? Marginalized. I love them. Marginalized. Let me ask you a question. Those of you who believe in this marginalized theory, if your kid were applying to a prestigious college, would it be better or worse if your kid put down non-binary, indigenous people, queer, or something to that effect, or cisgender white male? That's the worst. Cisgender means you actually identify with the sex that you are. You are a certain sex, my friends. They made up the word gender and applied it to human beings in order to deny that we have a sex. She organized a host. She's, again, the chief risk officer for Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. She organized a host of LGBTQ initiatives, including a month-long pride campaign, and implemented safe space catch-ups for staff. What's a safe space catch-up? Do you know? Catch-up must be a British term. That's what I think. It's a British thing. Yeah. Have you ever been to a catch-up?
I've used ketchup.
I had a feeling you would say something about ketchup. That's rare for you. This was an effusion of punning, and
It wasn't a pun, really.
You'd use ketchup. Yes, fine. Maybe that's what they meant. Safe space ketchups.
They have Play-Doh.
Yes. If they have Play-Doh, Safe space catch-ups is as logical as safe space catch-ups. In a corporate video published just 9 months ago, she said she could not be prouder to work for SVB serving underrepresented entrepreneurs. Okay. Is that the one who has the video? Is it from this Jay Ursipa? Who is the person who gives we're going to play? Oh, it's a lot of people. Right, thank you. Yes, I sent it to you and I don't remember what it is. I read too much. More on SVB when we return. Many investment advisors have been recommending cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin. They claim it's the new gold. This is Dennis Prager for AmFed Coin and Bullion. Why would you buy the new gold when you can buy real gold and silver, which have maintained value for thousands of years versus the highly volatile crypto market? When I purchase gold and silver, I do so from my friend, and I don't often say my friend in these ad copies, Nick Grovich, owner of AmFed Coin and Bullion. I like the fact that it's tangible. I can hold it and control how it's stored, unlike digital currency that's held in a digital wallet. I want to preserve my wealth, which is far from the case with Bitcoin spiraling drop in price. Nick's been in the precious metals industry for over 41 years, and he has established a reputation built on trust, transparency, and fair pricing. Call Nick and his team at AmFed Coin and Bullion to take advantage of his honest advice and extensive expertise. 800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com. AmericanFederal.com. So I'd like you to hear this this video made by this incompetent bank, Silicon Valley Bank, their British division, about how they welcome the marginalized and they reach out. There isn't a word about whether they're a good bank. The whole preoccupation, which is part of the reason they crumbled, their preoccupation was with woke policies, not good banking. Well, it's okay. The airlines are starting, some of the airlines are starting to be preoccupied with the same thing. Not good piloting, but reaching out to make sure that the underrepresented and the marginalized are in the cockpit. They don't use any longer. Flight deck. Here is the. I hope you'll follow it and you can watch it because my show is in fact on the Salem News Channel on video. So you can watch this video as we play it. But if you're just listening, listen carefully. They all have British accents, which you will acclimate to rapidly. How does SVB...
I think what really sets us apart when we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion at SVB is our culture and our united desire to lead with empathy, to listen without judgment.
Hold on, is that...
And to really try...
Wait. That's it. This is a bank, ladies and gentlemen. They listened with empathy. That's where I want to place my hard-earned money. An empathic bank. There's one group, however, that SVB did not have empathy for. Do you know what group that is? Can you guess? Now, I think I know what you're thinking, but I'm not thinking that. You're thinking Christians, Republicans, Trump supporters. I'll get to that. The group that they didn't have empathy for, well, there were two. They're investors and they're depositors. But they did have empathy for the marginalized. Continue, please.
And put ourselves in the shoes of others. The result of that is a place to work where you don't feel like you have to self-edit when you come to work.
Okay,
or when
this
you
is
join
a
a Zoom
lie.
call.
You do have to self-edit when you go to any woke institution. You don't have to self-edit if you're a Trump supporter, a Republican, a conservative, a devout Christian. You don't have to self-edit? Really? They lie with the ease with which you breathe. This guy is lying, And he doesn't know he's lying. He believes what he's saying because he's only thinking of certain groups. Of course you have to self-edit at any left-wing institution, which means any institution by and large today. That's exactly what you have to do. Shut your mouth, Christian. Shut your mouth, conservative. Shut your mouth, MAGA supporter. Shut your mouth if you think that children are born male or female. Just shut up, because you're a hater if you say there are only two sexes. Nobody has to self-edit at our bank. OMG. Continue, please.
One where you can bring as much as yourself to work as you really want to.
Okay, that's right. I mean, it's mind-blowing. You can bring as much of yourself to work? Really? So if the person is pro-life and they bring in pictures of babies in the womb, that's not an issue at Silicon Valley Bank, the late, unlamented Silicon Valley Bank? This is the culture that they're creating. By the way, it's not the only bank creating this culture. The biggest banks are going as woke, almost as woke as SVB did. Continue, please. This is their video.
Of joining SVB, I think it's the people and the culture that there is here. Everyone's been really friendly, approachable about being open, and it's made it really easy to be comfortable being my true self here.
But that's not true. The whole video is a lie. It's you're only comfortable if you are gay, if you're non-binary, if you are, what else, transsexual or transgender, then you're comfortable. If you hold any traditional value, it is a place of profound discomfort. And now here's this Jay Ersipa that I was quoting, the one who was made the head of the chief risk officer. And she describes herself, let me get that again, a queer person of color. So here she is.
Make it our mission at SVB to ensure that our clients, employees, and partners feel listened to and that their voices matter. So from funding underrepresented entrepreneurs to having multiple employee resource groups, I could not be prouder of working for a company like SVB.
Right. And if it weren't for a bailout, how many of your clients would have lost savings? And, of course, the investors have lost all their money. They're not bailed out. But this is their mission was not good banking. Their mission was to make a place comfortable for the non-binary. Continue, please.
What we do throughout the year, the space that we hold throughout the year for all of these groups, for everyone that feels that they have a space in one of these ERGs, and talking about it all the time, not just for Pride Month, not just for, any other kind of day related. It's about how we support each other all the time.
But
I think we do that well.
They only support each other if they're of a certain persuasion. They really, they committed suicide at SVB. My friends, a food shortage could be coming. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's true. So survival food is important. Create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots Survival Food Kits. It's not ordinary food. We're talking good for 25 years super survival food. Hand-packed right in a family-owned facility in the USA, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. The kits are compact, sturdy, water-resistant, and stack easily. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, dinners. You can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. Right now, you can go to 4Patriots, that's the number 4, 4patriots.com. Use the code Prager to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store. You get their famous year-long guarantee after your order and free shipping on orders over $97. Just go to 4patriots.com to get 10% off with the code Prager. 4, patriots.com, code Prager. To say that Silicon Valley Bank was run by utterly incompetent people, dangerous people, in fact, because a combination of stupid and arrogant. This is a symbol of the age. At least 25 years ago, I began saying, probably longer, what has happened in journalism is reporters decided that merely reporting the news as objectively as they could, and nobody can do it perfectly, we understand that, but merely being a reporter, which is what journalists should be. They should report the news. If they wish to be a columnist, then they can give their opinions. But as a news reporter, your task is to report the news. The more people became left-wing, the less they valued their profession. So they didn't view their purpose of reporting the news as adequate, as life-fulfilling. This is notoriously true about one of the least responsible groups in the country, which is competition, sports writers. They go to bed at night, and most of them think, gee, all I do is report on sports. I'm not changing the world. For people on the left, doing your work well, let alone raising good kids, is so spectacularly unfulfilling. What you need to do is fulfill your purpose of life in the macro. You have to change the world. Hope and change. Remember that? Change the world. And so they become political. All bankers do is protect the assets of their customers, whether they are the investors or the depositors. That's not changing the world. Reporters are not changing the world. Of course, none of these people realize, actors felt this. All I do is act? No. I have to change the world. As society secularized, people lost more and more meaning. Many of these people are not married or have children. Massive arenas of meaning in life. So what they do is they try to use their profession for values, ideals, hopes, promises, policies that have nothing to do with their field. The moron sports writers who went crazy about the Washington Redskins football team changing its name and dropping the name Redskins. And it turns out the Washington Post itself, massive study of American Indians, of Native Americans, the vast majority couldn't care less about the name Redskins. The whole thing was a fraud made up by sports writers, bored with their profession, who think they're nothings, but now they're somethings, because they clamored for the dignity of American Indians, of indigenous peoples. Same with these bankers. Think we're just going to protect the assets of our depositors and investors? No way. We are going to protect the marginalized, which has nothing to do with banking. And so they didn't know anything about banking. When you run a bank and you don't account for interest rates rising, you're an idiot. Is that fair?
Yeah.
The interest rate is at zero. It's going to continue that way forever. It doesn't, I know that. And economics is not my field. I know a hell of a lot more about theology than economics. But I know more about economics than the people who ran SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, because that's not their area. They had a massive portion of their assets in bonds that will lose value if and when interest climbs, long bonds. My friends, I'm Dennis Prager, and I devoted the entire hour to the banking issue. If you didn't hear it, can't hear it, would like to hear it again, please know you can hear every one of my hours without commercials at PragerTopia.com. PragerTopia.com. People around the world listen to the show via PragerTopia. Last night was the Academy Awards. I don't know if you say was the Academy Awards or were the Academy Awards, because the Academy Awards is the name of an event. An event is singular. Very few people are troubled by this. I am. Well, we pick our troubles. One of the heroes of America today is Christian Toto, well-known Hollywood maven, that is a connoisseur of what goes on there. Why is he an American hero? Because I believe he watched the entire Academy Awards last night. My friends, that is like jumping into icy water and saving a drowning child. Christian Toto, who is author of Virtue Bombs, How Hollywood Got Woke and Lost Its Soul. He also has a video up at PragerU on Hollywood and its wokacity. So without being cute, I was cute, but on the non-cute level, tell me the truth, and I don't have any agenda for the answer. Mm-hmm. On a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being fascinating, exhilarating, I didn't want it to end, 1 being so boring that I would have preferred to stare at a ceiling. What would you rate the Academy Awards?
You know, it usually floats between a 1 and a 2. Last night was a solid 4. I have to give the show some credit.
I knew you would be honest, and that's why I was curious. So why was it better than previous ones?
Well, the last couple of years have been almost like a caricature of what a conservative would imagine the Oscars would be in La La Hollywood land. Just virtue signaling and preaching and not entertaining. And they pushed some, not all, but some of that away. It was much more straightforward. There was a lot of gratitude. There were some beautiful speeches. And Jimmy Kimmel, the shock of all shocks, was not a hardcore progressive politician during the monologue. He was actually kind of funny and charming. And he did some jokes late in the show that were definitely for his base. But he kept to the basics. It wasn't Billy Crystal, but it was Crystal-like. And I was shocked by that.
There's no question then that whoever runs the Academy Awards, what is it, the Academy Motion Pictures Academy? What is it called?
Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences.
Yeah, okay. They got the message Americans were tuning out. Is that correct?
You know, they've never said that, and it's been bad for a while. But when you watch the show last night, something changed. Something happened. Some message got out. And it wasn't completely message-free, but it was very different than recent years. It can't be an accident, especially with Jimmy Kimmel, whose bread and butter is very progressive, political humor, always one-sided. And he really held his punches for most of the night. It can't have happened just, oh, gosh, we're going to make it like this.
Yes, of course.
There must have been some sort of edict pushed down.
That makes perfect sense. So do we have any idea what the ratings are, or will that come out later in the week?
You know, it should be later today. I just checked before we came on. Didn't see anything yet. Usually Twitter will have it first. You know, it's been very interesting. I think that the slap last year, the Chris Rock, Will Smith incident, maybe will help a little bit this year because people think, oh, gosh, what's going to happen now? But other than that, I don't think anything will be changing dramatically. It is radically smaller than it was 10 years ago. Gargantuan difference between now and 20 years ago. it's just not a must-see event. They've chased a lot of people away, and they're not coming back.
Well, I'm one of them. I mean it. I'm not. I really enjoy watching movies, but I'm not a I'm not a movie buff, but I really enjoy movies. I liked gratitude speeches. They touched me. You said that there was a lot of that last night?
Not only that, but one of the winners for Best Supporting Actor, Ki-Hugh Kwan, he said that his life is the American dream. He was an immigrant. He came to America.
You're kidding me. Wait, 1 second. Now, wait. He wasn't censored for saying that they didn't bleep it out?
No.
He said the words, he said the words, the American dream?
Absolutely. I can't lie about that.
Well, no,
It was stunning.
I am not kidding. I'm saying this to my audience. I'm not kidding. People ask me all the time, is there hope for America? Mm-hmm. And I never patronize audiences. There's always hope, but we're in a bad situation. That's a reason for hope. Just that fact alone at the Academy Awards, and he's an immigrant. Where did he immigrate from? Do you know?
You know, he's Asian American. It might be Viet. I don't know his country of origin, but that was part of his story.
And the audience obviously applauded.
You know, he was such a great story. He was out of acting for a few years. He came back. It was everything was sort of on his side, and I think there's nothing he could have said that would have turned the audience against him. So I think that, and also, you know, he spoke from the heart. And as liberal as Hollywood is, I think on some level they get it. They get the American dream. They get the story. They know that they're so lucky to be able to dress up for a living. So I think on some internal level, it registered with them as well.
Christian Toto wrote Virtue Bombs, How Hollywood Got Woke and Lost Its Soul. And he's stationed in Denver. Was there a lot of security because of the Chris Rock issue? I read something about that. I'm serious.
You know, they mentioned there was a crisis team. I didn't see any physical signs of it. I'm sure they had people on guard. But, you know, that was a once-in-a-lifetime thing, thank goodness. But, you mentioned signs of hope in times of despair. I think the fact that the Oscars did what they did last night and changed course in a way
that's a good point.
Is sort of a global better sign as well. I mean, listen, this is a large fight. But the fact that they decided to dial it down, it does speak something. It says that they get it on some level.
So the name Everything Everywhere All at Once, it won 7 awards. Mm-hmm. Had I spoken to you on Friday, would you have predicted the winner? Best Picture?
Oh, yes. And, you know, it's been winning almost every award before the Oscars. It's got all the buzz. The critics liked it. It was a kind of an indie film, a very quirky movie, but it made a fairly good amount of money for that kind of production. So everything was in its favor. It's got a mostly Asian cast, and of course, diversity matters to an extreme level in Hollywood. But listen, it was inventive. It was different. And Hollywood is so obsessed with sequels and remakes and reboots. This was fresh. I didn't love it. I didn't think it was a great movie, but it was definitely different and challenging and clever. And, good for Hollywood.
So that's interesting. So my producer taught screenwriting at the American Film Institute. Is that correct? I got the name right. He that's his background. He really knows movies like you do. And he had the exact same reaction. It was a good movie, not a great movie. So did it win because the others were mediocre, or did it win to a significant extent because of its Asian cast?
That's the million-dollar question. And that's why what we're seeing now in Hollywood is so toxic, because when you win, you should win because you're the best, or people think you're the best. It's an artist's objective. So now you have to think, okay, was it just that it was a wonderful movie and that it was original and dynamic? Or was part of it that, Hollywood has been dismissive of minorities for years and they feel such guilt that they're trying to overcorrect? And, no one should have that on them. And the people who won should just think, you know what, we won, it's great, and that's wonderful. But there's always that thought in your mind that maybe this was winning for a different reason. There's a different motivation there. You can never say for sure, but
what do you think was the best movie?
I thought Top Gun Maverick was. I thought Top Gun Maverick did everything right. It had nostalgia. It had action. It had a beautiful arc to it. It had fine performances. It was visually dazzling. It continued a story that people loved from the 80s in a fresh way. It was so apolitical. It was kind of political in a sense. I think for all those reasons, it was the best picture. It was the most popular. And I don't always think that the most popular should be the best picture at the Oscars. Don't get me wrong. But I think it did enough to just check every possible box. And it was nominated, but it had no hope of winning.
Because it was too celebratory of the military?
I don't know. Maybe there's sort of when you're so popular that sort of rubs against you in a way, like,
that's interesting.
Critics like something different. But, critics liked it as well. So, listen, it just didn't have that Oscar feel. It had a blockbuster feel. The Oscar movies are, biopics and serious and sober and addressing societal ills, and it didn't do that. It was just fun.
I got a few more questions because it's an important event in America to give. It's one of those things that you could measure the heartbeat of the country. By the way, his website is HollywoodInToto.com. HollywoodInToto, TOTO.com. Christian Toto. We return momentarily, Christian. I thank you. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, Mike Lindell with MyPillow is launching the MyPillow 2.0. When Mike invented MyPillow, it had everything you could ever want in a pillow. Now, nearly 20 years later, he discovered a new technology that makes it even better. The MyPillow 2.0 has the patented adjustable fill of the original MyPillow, and now with a brand new fabric that is made with a temperature-regulating thread. The MyPillow 2.0 is the softest, smoothest, and coolest pillow you'll ever own. For my listeners, the MyPillow 2.0 is buy one, get one free offer with promo code Prager. MyPillow 2.0 temperature-regulating technology is 100% made in the USA and comes with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. Just go to MyPillow.com and click on the radio listeners square to the buy one, get one free offer. Enter promo code Prager or call 800-761-6302 to get your MyPillow 2.0 now.
I can't stand it.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Dennis Prager. I'm going to continue reviewing Hollywood. And you hear the touching speech of the Best Actor winner. Best Supporting Actor. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that. I do. Christian Toto, as in HollywoodInToto.com, author of Virtue Bombs, How Hollywood Got Woke and Lost Its Soul, PragerU video from a couple of years ago about Hollywood. Last year? Oh, that recent? We're back to Christian Toto. I'm going to play, Christian, the talk you referenced by the Vietnamese-American winner of Best Supporting Actor. I'd like you all to hear it. It's about a half a minute.
My mom is 84 years old, and she's at home watching. Mom, I just want an Oscar.
He's crying. It's very touching.
My journey started on a boat. I spent a year in a refugee camp, and somehow I ended up here on Hollywood's biggest stage. They say stories like this only happen in the movies. I cannot believe it's happening to me. This is the American dream.
That's really great. This is the American dream. Takes a Vietnamese American. If he started on a boat, that means he was a Vietnamese boat person, escaping the communist tyrants of Vietnam. Imagine if he'd have said that. I was on a boat escaping communism. What, you think they would have cheered, Christian?
Uh-oh. We need to take a break, everyone.
Yes, exactly.
Little hook would come out and grab him. That actually, his story would make a great movie. And I don't know if Hollywood wants to make it, but that wouldn't be so bad.
That's an excellent point. How many of the nominees did you watch?
I think I've seen most. I did not see All Quiet on the Western Front, but I saw 9 of the 10 Best Pictures and most of everything. There's a lot of movies, and I have not seen the shorts.
Why did they extend it from 5 nominees to 10?
It's pure marketing. I mean, listen, if you're a Best Picture nominee, you put that on the poster, you put that in the ad campaign.
Oh, I see.
The Oscars themselves, it's a huge advertisement for Hollywood, for movies, for glamour, for the whole experience. And we accept that, and it's perfectly fine, which is why it's been so weird that they've been so abrasive in their comments, because you're pushing people away. You want to draw them in and say, hey, this is the best of Hollywood. These are the best stars, the most glamorous, the most talented. These movies stirred our emotions. Come see them, come watch them again, and tell a friend. So the whole evening is just an advertisement, really.
Why didn't they extend then Best Actor, Best Actress to 10?
I don't know. I mean, I think at that point
it
maybe gets
unwieldy.
a little bit too. Yeah, but I think there's hopefully some tradition involved.
When I watched the Oscars years ago, they would for each nominee for Best Movie, they would show clips from the movie. Mm-hmm. Do they still do that with 10 nominees?
They do it, and listen, it's one of the reasons why it's 3.5 hours long. There's so much to do. You've got assembles of clips. They had an in memoriam segment honoring the people who had passed away the last year, little skits here and there, so many awards. There's just tons of content. And, the bottom line is that even if it was an engaging show, 3.5 hours, nothing lasts like that and can really get our attention. So making 3.5 hours.
Rosh Hashanah services do.
Okay, fair enough.
It's a total non sequitur, but when you said nothing lasts 3.5 hours, as a Jew who attends services, I assure you it's not true. There was the best, I read the best, song was from India. Is that correct?
Yeah, the movie's RRR, and it's a really over-the-top, outlandish, fun, musically driven. It's got action sequences. It's a fun film. It didn't get a lot of love last night, but they did have a live performance of some of the performers who made that come to life. It was spectacular. I mean, if the whole show would have been that, I would have been.
Really? Oh, so you think it's something worth watching?
Absolutely. It's also a very long movie. It's on Netflix right now, so if you want to stream it, you can do it right tonight.
All right. Well,
but it's different. It's fun.
That reminds me then, when you say it's on Netflix, I have great anger at Hollywood, and yet I don't want to see movie theaters closed by the thousands. Are they?
Last year was tough. I think bouncing back from the pandemic has been uneasy. I think there are a lot of question marks there. I think the early 2023 has been some signs of progress. But, with streaming technology, with social media, and with movies that just ain't that great, there's a problem there. There's a disconnect. So I think if Hollywood upped its game, made better movies, kind of cut the messaging out and just said, hey, come watch our films, come enjoy the experience. We're so glad to have you. Tom Cruise, the actor, for whatever flaws he has off screen, has been this really strong ambassador to the movie-going experience. He just makes good movies. He thanks the people again and again for coming. And if more stars kind of carried that sensibility, that let's put on a show sentiment, I think theaters would rebound in a bigger way.
Finally, and I could talk to you for hours, actually. You're a delight. What did you see Tar?
I did.
What did you think of it?
I enjoyed it. It really, classical music, it's not my strength, but it really kind of takes you behind the scenes in that world, and it shows a lot of the nuances of cancel culture in a way that I think we need to see. And, of course, Kate Blanchett is extraordinary.
Okay, I'm going to have to see that. I'm going to have to see that. All right, your website, HollywoodInToto.com. Visit it, my friends, and read his book, Virtue Bombs. Watch his PragerU video. Speak to you soon. Thank you, Christian.
My pleasure.
Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager, and March is PragerU fundraising month. You want to have more hope? Donate to PragerU. We change minds. You will see that they'll be coming. Where will the ad be on Fox News?
Yeah, it's been playing.
It's been playing already? You could see the ad for PragerU at Fox News, and you will see one of our personalities, Amala Epinobi, who sat in for me last week, by the way, as she has on a number of occasions. She's extraordinary. And she notes how PragerU changed her mind. She's about 22 years old, and she rolls up her sleeve and shows you a BLM tattoo. So that doesn't prove that this is someone who went from left to sanity. Nothing would. So this is a very important work that PragerU is doing. Another one of our personalities, one of the newest, that is, personality is the term, in case you're not hip on these matters. For those influencers is another term for them that various websites may use. They may use their own. PragerU has a number of such young people. One of them is CJ Pearson, who's terrific, and who has a show at PragerU.com, the weekly wrap-up. So I welcome him to my show. Hi, CJ.
Good to see you, Dennis. How are you?
Well, as I said to you when we were doing the video test right before, to see you in a tie and shirt is, I mean, ties usually come with shirts. It's redundant. To see you wearing a tie. So I'm curious, seriously, prior to PragerU, did you ever wear a tie?
You know, every now and then, I grew up in the South, so every Sunday going to church, my grandmother made sure that I had a tie on.
That really touches me. So you lived the concept, did you use the term Sunday best?
Oh yeah, every Sunday. It was the expectation.
Where in the South did you grow up?
In Georgia, Augusta.
Is Augusta? No.
It's where the Masters is, the golf tournament.
Oh, that's right. I knew there was something there. That's right. Exactly. Did you ever get into golf?
A little bit. Living there, you kind of have to. So it's either you learn how to play some golf or you learn how to drive the car. And I think I'm a little bit better at driving the car, but,
Me too. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
So how did you end up at PragerU?
Yeah, so, actually, it's kind of a funny story. So the freshman year of college for me, which was just 3 or so years ago, I actually did one of our 5-minute videos talking about the importance of 9/11, an event that I wasn't even alive during, but remember to this day, obviously, because of the importance that it has in American history and the symbol that it proves to America's determination, its grit, and also the importance that it shows in the terms of that America can be a united country and what we can accomplish when we do. And then so since then, I've been involved in conservative politics since I was just an 11-year-old kid making YouTube videos in my childhood bedroom. And it's been an incredible journey. And one thing for me that I've always been intentional about is just showing other young people that there is another side of the argument, that we don't always get in our college lecture halls or our college classrooms, but very much does exist. It's the conservative point of view. And, we stayed in touch with PragerU. And then when the role opened up for a new personality here, I volunteered, I auditioned, and it went well. And now I live here in LA and work full time for PragerU.
Is your family proud of you?
I hope so. We do have different politics, and that was, kind of interesting.
Well, that's why I asked the question.
Yeah. So it was interesting growing up. When I first started in politics, I think they definitely thought it was a phase. And the interesting thing about my grandparents is that and that's who I was raised by, while they always have voted Democrat, they've always been pretty conservative people. Like I said, I grew up going to church every single Sunday, learning about the importance of faith and family, of not spending money that you don't have. So for me, it wasn't a stretch to embrace conservative values. It's what I was raised around. But what was interesting about them is that they kind of bought into the gaslighting that the left is often known to do, but telling black people that we should allow the color of our skin to dictate our politics. But thankfully, being so young, I wasn't blinded by that nonsense. I hadn't even been exposed to it yet. I didn't know what identity politics was.
I want to when we come back, I want to deal with this issue of your family. I mean, they're black conservatives who vote Democrat. That's what I'm hearing. Back in a moment with CJ Pearson. This is fundraising month for PragerU, PragerU.com. Hello, everybody. We have a couple of people, young people, who have large audiences at PragerU touching young people, though obviously people of any age listen, but especially young people. One of the newest is CJ Pearson. How old are you, CJ?
I'm 20 years old.
You're kidding me. Folks, do you realize that this guy has a large audience and is very effective, and he was not alive on 9/11? When you said that to me, I really thought, wow, this is the way the world works. Yeah. Something that is so real and vivid in my mind and most Americans' minds, you were not even born yet. So here you are, a black kid in Augusta, Georgia. Mm-hmm. Now, if I may ask, and you'll be as open as you feel you can, you spoke of your grandmother. So were there parents in your life?
Yeah. So my mom had me in her senior year of high school, wasn't really in any position to kind of raise a child. And so my grandparents stepped in. And my grandfather, he served 20 years in the military in the United States Army. My grandmother, she stayed at home. And it gave me that conservative upbringing that we kind of talked about a little bit before the break. I grew up in the church. I grew up surrounded by family and the importance of it and all of those things, which is why even when we disagreed about politics, we never disagreed about values. We never disagreed about principles. And so while they haven't always been the most excited about the people that I support or the ideas that I profess, I always give them a hard time about it because I'm like, these ideas are your ideas. You guys just vote the wrong way. So,
you should tell your family what I tell my family. Because blacks vote Democrat, Jews vote Democrat. And I tell my extended family, who have exactly the point, utterly traditional values. In my case, I'm not talking about my kids. They are conservative, thank God. But my extended family, and, they go to synagogue every week, just like you went to church every week. And so I came up with a phrase. I said to them, why don't you preach what you practice? That's what you should. That's what you could tell your family, folks. I preach what you practice.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And I would always tell them that growing up. I'd have a video that went viral online, and my grandpa or my grandma would be like, "Why are you saying these things, CJ? Why are you saying these things?" Well, these are the things that you taught me to say. And I think that looking around, even being young, when I first started being 12 years old, I would look around the country and look at the destitution and poverty of America's inner cities, and I would see the commonality between all of them. It was progressive thought run amok, bad public policy that left the black community in a state of destitution, where in so many of those communities, you can't even have black kids playing on the sidewalk without the threat of them being shot dead. And I don't understand how one can support policies that continue to put us in the chains that we worked so hard historically to rid ourselves of. I couldn't get behind that.
It shows you how people are animated by emotion more than by reason.
Exactly. It's so real, and I think that's why what we're doing at PragerU is so important, because it's about actually putting logic in front of people and equipping young people like me who were in college before. I left the University of Alabama to come join PragerU, but equipping the campus conservatives with the knowledge that they need to defend their ideas and to advance the movement in our lecture halls. Because in far too many classrooms, what we see is that these college professors, they get to, condemn America, decry it as this racist, sexist, bigoted institution. And no one in those classrooms sometimes has the courage to raise their hand. But what I always noticed, that when I was in those classrooms and I would raise my hand, after class, you would have people walking up to you and saying, I've never thought about it that way, and I didn't even know that conservatives thought that way about this issue. And I think that, one of the best things that we do at PragerU is we just don't focus on preaching to the choir, but we focus on growing the congregation to ensure that the conservative movement not only can continue to survive, but thrive and grow. And we do that every single day here, and it's been such an incredible thing to be a part of.
You're enjoying it?
I'm having so much fun. I never thought that I would move to LA from the South after living in Augusta, going to the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. But, the great thing about being in LA, and I think it's so interesting about PragerU, is that you're reminded of the reason that we fight every single day. Because we're surrounded.
That's a great line. I finally found a justification for staying in LA.
Exactly. Like, you can't, live in LA and be surrounded by the homeless encampments and, the lack of support for our law enforcement and say that this is where America should go. And so living here, you say, I'm going to fight incredibly hard with so much passion, with so much zeal, with so much energy to ensure that the rest of the American people don't have to undergo what we volunteer to go through every single day. But we do have great weather here, Dennis. So that's a perk.
Yeah, but believe me, if we had Alabama's weather, nobody would be living here. It's a sad fact. Well, CJ, it is a joy to have you on board at PragerU. And how do people watch you or hear you?
Yes. Yeah. So you guys can check out my weekly show, The Wrap Up, which is available on PragerU.com and the PragerU YouTube. And you guys can also check me out on Twitter at the CJ Pearson. And I'm on all the apps, and you can catch me there. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Thank you so much. And folks, this is fundraising month for PragerU. Now you understand why. What did he say? It was such a great point. We grow the community, or whatever it is. That's right. That's exactly right. Think of a 20-year-old watching CJ Pearson, who used the key word. It's not a matter of, it is a matter, of course, of conservatism. But do you know what it is a matter of primarily? Logic. That's the term he used. That's exactly right. It's not logical to say men give birth. It's absurd. Anyway, so go to PragerU.com, please. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Dennis Prager. Addressed the issue of the Silicon Valley Bank, and now I'm addressing the issue of parents, children, and what is happening to our children. I am preoccupied with the issue. The child abuse that the left is engaged in is one of the reasons that if there is a God, and I believe there is, and God is just, I believe this with utter sincerity, people on the left will be judged adversely by a good God. If for nothing else, I mean, they have a history of genocide, but even the non-genocidal left, the damage deliberately done to children by the left in this country and in Britain and Canada is astonishing. State of California, where I live, and I don't know if I am morally justified for even living here because I pay taxes here to an extremely corrupt and evil government. These are very serious matters, and they are addressed in a brand new book by two people, one of whom I know and am a big fan of. I've had her on a number of occasions, Karol Markowicz. She is co-authored with Bethany Mandel this book. She's a columnist for the New York Post, Stolen Youth, How Radicals Are Erasing Innocence and Indoctrinating a Generation. If that's not self-recommending, then nothing is, given who's written it and the subject. The book is up at DennisPrager.com, Stolen Youth. Karol Markowicz, welcome back to the Dennis Prager Show.
Hi, Dennis. Really nice to see you.
Yes, the same here. Was I too severe? And you can certainly say yes. I always tell guests you can differ with me.
I don't think so. We opened the book with a history chapter on totalitarian leftism of the past and the ways that it has harmed children and divided families and caused mass destruction. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that this is happening in America today, that the totalitarianism that we all have feared in other places has arrived here and is happening. Last week, I'm on Instagram, as all the old people like me are. And I saw a reel of you speaking and saying that when you were in the Soviet Union, people used to look over their shoulder before speaking to you. And that now that happens to you in America, that when you're in an airport, somebody will come up to you and kind of like look around before they start talking, and because they're afraid. That to me, I remixed it, as the kids say, on Instagram, and I posted it on my Instagram, and I said, this is what our book is about. It's this forced conformity where you're afraid to speak to Dennis Prager in an airport is what we're afraid of happening to our children.
That's right. So when you say you begin with the history, what history are you referring to exactly?
So I open with a story of my own family. I was born in the Soviet Union. My great-grandfather died in a gulag in the Soviet Union, and how that affected my family, how his children suffered, how they were always afraid, how they felt like they were the enemies of the state and that they had to renounce their father and really make a whole big spectacle of it. My great-grandfather died under Stalin's rule, and yet when Stalin died, his two daughters set out to make a scrapbook of Stalin's life. And then, of course, a few months later, Stalin was out of fashion, so they had to quickly destroy the scrapbook. And that kind of conformity and spectacle is something that we just have really not experienced in America. But during the George Floyd riots, where immediately all of my neighbors in Brooklyn put up BLM signs and defund police signs, it was so familiar of the, not only do you need to believe, and you need to believe in a very specific way. You can't say I'm not racist. You have to say I'm anti-racist. You have to make the spectacle of it so that you know that you're allowed into the in-group. And if you're not, if you don't, who knows what will happen to you.
I'm just trying to picture Karol Markowicz surrounded by defund police and BLM signs.
On their like $5 million brownstones,
Oh, the more expensive, the more likely you are to have this.
Right, absolutely. Because they don't have to worry about that. It wasn't their problem if the police were defunded.
Have you ever? I haven't. I'll just say that. I would love to, but they don't come on shows like mine. They don't dialogue. They don't meet anybody who differs with them. But have you in any way experienced a dialogue with any of these people at like children's hospitals who say that a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old can be given hormone blockers and even eventually horrible surgeries? Have you ever spoken to any of these people?
I've never spoken to anybody in a hospital that actually is doing this or having a direct result on these children, but I've absolutely spoken to people who believe that this is the right path for so many kids. And I will say, hormone blockers can have lifelong effects on these children. It can really damage them. They can maybe never have kids. Other terrible things happen to them. And they'll say, no, I read that it's completely harmless and you can reverse it at any time. And it's shocking to me that they believe something that's so obviously untrue. And in Stolen Youth, we've spoken to people who had this gender dysphoria, were convinced into one way or another. And, it ended up being that they didn't feel ultimately like they were the other sex than the one that they were born in. And we felt that these stories were really important to tell because, again, people are living in a world where they're told that there's no repercussions to trying to change the gender that you were born with. Obviously there is. How could there not be?
I haven't heard this mentioned much, but I do agree. I, like you, devote a lot of attention to this, though, of course, I've not written a book like you have, and I want to repeat, the book is called Stolen Youth. It's up at DennisPrager.com. But the very notion that a person thinks they're the opposite sex is bizarre. And I mean bizarre because it defies any understanding, not because I don't have it, but because how could you possibly know if you're a boy what it means to be a girl? How do you know? How do you know you're a girl? You don't right. know what being a girl is like. So how could you possibly say you are something you have no idea what it is like to be?
Yeah. What's even scarier is that we've, blew past that so quickly. You could change your gender from boy to girl or girl to boy. Now you can be non-binary. Before we left New York, my 12-year-old daughter's friends were all one by one coming out as non-binary because it was an easy thing to be. You don't have to change anything. You just have to declare yourself a they. Last week, the Washington Post unironically referred to somebody as Zer, Z-E-R. I don't even know what that's supposed to be. What pronoun is Zer? I've never heard of that.
Well, Zer is non-binary. Are you serious?
Well,
the Washington Post did that?
Post.
In an opinion piece or a news piece? No, in a news You're kidding me.
No, I'm serious. I'll send it to you. The person in the story wants to be referred to as Zer, and that's what they got. Yeah, it's happening. It's here.
What if somebody said to the Post, I'd like to be referred to as His Eminence?
Well, Dennis, if you don't do that, should the Post ever interview you, then, I don't even know you. You have to do that.
You're so right. You're so right. I will have blown a real opportunity. I would love to have an answer to that question. How do you know the other sex? See, you can't have it both ways. If you're a girl and you say you're a boy, then you obviously are saying, I'm something quite different. I'm willing to mutilate my body. That's how different I feel from my sex. But the very fact that the boy is so different means you don't have a clue what it means to be a boy. You literally don't know what you are doing. And adults are facilitating this, which is, of course, what you're writing about. Did you come across any dissenters on the left? Is there anybody saying this is horrible?
There are. They are unable to use their real names, which just tells you the kind of situation that they're in. But there are people on the left dissenting, and the people that are starting to speak out on this because they're seeing some real truths. Barry Weiss published a piece by somebody who works inside a gender hospital where they, the woman who wrote the piece is a lesbian. She's, fairly committed to leftist causes, but she saw that these kids were, there's only one way to treat them now. And we have a chapter in the book on medical licensing. For example, if you are a doctor and you don't think that gender affirming is what we should be doing to every single child, then you can lose your license. And that's really the scariest part of this woke conformity that has taken hold that we write about in Stolen Youth, is that you can maybe take your kids out of schools, you can take them out of culture, you can not have them watch modern movies with all this nonsense in it, but how are you not going to take them to the pediatrician? And That's really when the trouble begins.
So when we come back, I want to talk to you about the role of women in the stealing of youth, if you have thoughts on that. The book is Stolen Youth. It is up at DennisPrager.com. Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. Major new book out this week, Stolen Youth. How radicals are erasing innocence and indoctrinating a generation. Bethany Mandel and Karol Markowicz. I have Karol Markowicz on. She's columnist at the New York Post. Every one of her columns is worth reading. So your subtitle is the thing that drives me crazy, the erasing of innocence. So I have a question for you, which is Karol there, by the way? Do we have her on?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, I didn't see you. Okay, great. So you're a woman, and it's a two-part question. Question number one, was I naive in thinking, and I literally thought this almost all of my life until the present era, meaning last few years, that it was built into women to protect children's innocence. So question number one, was that a naive romanticizing of females? And B, now that females are wildly disproportionately taking children's innocence away, how do you explain that? So number one, do you think, and by the way, I do now think that I was naive, but maybe there is no such thing even as female nature. I mean, if females are not built to protect children, then a lot of my understanding of men and women has been incorrect.
I think women are built to protect children. I think that what you're seeing is a really small subset of women. Leftism is extremely unpopular. It is a tiny fraction of the population that is leftist. You know, I like to say that recent Pew poll had 7% of the country describes themselves as very liberal. And I'm sure that number is far lower for true leftists who would do crazy things to children. But they're loud and they're in control of a lot of our institutions, and they push through their agenda through forced conformity. And that's like the theme throughout the whole book, is that people are afraid because of the repercussions that they might face from these crazy people. And so are women nurtured to protect children? I think we are. I think that my instincts is not only to protect my own children, but all children. I felt like when I was writing this book that I can protect my children. I moved to Florida. I took my kids out of what I thought was a failing situation for them in so many different ways in New York City. But obviously not every kid can do that. So I felt like this book was fighting for all the kids that don't have the opportunities that my kids might have. And the women that you're talking about, I know exactly who you mean. It's these women who are more afraid to lose their social status. So they take their kids to these drag queen shows where the drag queen is twerking on their toddler, which they would never do if it was a woman, right? If the drag queen was a stripper, they would never allow this to happen. But because it's a man in drag, somehow that makes it okay. And that's really the tell here, is that they think it's okay because it's got some proximity to LGBT or whatever. And they think that makes it acceptable, and that makes them part of the in-group. And for women who care more about belonging to the in-group than they do of their children, I fully agree with you that these women are not the standard that we're used to, that care about kids and protect children.
Okay. So I wasn't naive is your answer to number one. What about question two? How do you explain the disproportionate role women are playing in ruining children?
Well, that's an easy one, because women have more access to children. Women have more availability of children to ruin. I think that's sort of the answer here, is that these women are pushing an agenda through the children. And again, that first chapter where we talk about the history of this, it's always through the children that the agenda gets pushed. It's always through a separation of the family. And these women are doing this because they believe in the ideology more than anything else. You know, I've been thinking recently about how the language that we use, like victims of communism, it's not victims of communism, it's victim of communists. It's victim of this. It's not victims of the ideology. It's victims of the people who push the ideology. And these women are those people hurting children and pushing their ideology through them.
There's a story you tell in the book of a man. His last name is Louis, L-U-I. He moved from California to Indiana. Thinking he was going to protect his children. And then, by the way, I could have told him what would happen.
Right.
I don't know almost anywhere in the country. I'm sure I know that they exist, but I can't name one where the average school, private or public, is not hurting children. Indiana is middle America, but it doesn't matter. The schools are not run by middle America. The schools are run by fools, by radical fools. So what does a parent do?
Well, the message of our book is you have to fight back no matter where you are. Yeah, you should not feel comfortable just because you're in a red state. I feel more comfortable in Florida than I did in Brooklyn, for sure. I feel more comfortable because of Governor Ron DeSantis' policies. I think he implements things that have an actual effect. I think that the public schools here are safer than the private schools in that way, because wokeness is just really curtailed in the public schools and it can't be in the private. But yeah, there's nowhere that you can just sit back and relax and send your kids to school and not worry about it. You have to give them the foundation at home. You say, these are our values, and this is what I want you to go live in the world. And they will also notice when somebody else is trying to push their values on them. I think my kids are extremely attuned to somebody trying to indoctrinate them. I mean, I have
you'll
three
tell
kids.
us how you did that.
Yeah.
Hold on. I want to
Yeah.
reacquaint the audience with your great book, Stolen Youth, How Radicals Are Erasing Innocence. Bethany Mandel, Karol Markowicz, the book is up, Stolen Youth, at DennisPrager.com, or just order it anywhere. It's fundraising month for PragerU. We change minds, especially young people. 1 billion views a year. It's the largest website of its type in the world. 65% of those views are people under 35. The only way we can do it, and everything is free, is through your help. PragerU.com, or just call 833-PragerU. Thank you. America thanks you. Karol Markowicz has co-authored Stolen Youth, How Radicals Are Erasing Innocence and Indoctrinating a Generation. Stolen Youth is up at DennisPrager.com or anywhere you want to buy the book. So, here's a question I'll bet no interviewer has asked you. And I'm okay if they did. But I'm just curious. You have children. Or forgetting that you have children. What would you recommend to a parent whose 10-year-old daughter comes home and says she's a boy?
Well, we address all of this in the book because we felt like people did need solutions and they needed a way out of this kind of madness. I present the path where my children stay in the culture, and we provide a foundation for them and also tools for them to use outside the house. My co-author, Bethany Mandel, has 6 children she homeschools and basically pulls them out of culture. But the things that you need to do is remove your child from situations where they're being influenced. Step 1 absolutely is that if it's a contagion that's happening at their school, then you have to pull them out of the school. You have to do whatever it takes for your child. And
all right, wait. Don't forget where you are. How would you know that there is a contagion?
Well, if my child came to me and said, I don't feel like the gender I was born with, then that's what I would immediately look for the source. And I would also say that you should be already in your child's business in every way. The thing is that I think a lot of parents give their kids too much room. I think your kids should be able to be free. I let my children explore on their own. But I know all of their friends. I have all of their passwords. I know all, apps that they use. That has to be step 1. But if you already didn't do that step, then I think that once they come to you with this, you have to be prepared to uproot your whole life to fix it, because it's so serious and it's so damaging, and it could easily turn into a lifelong thing, or it could be just a phase. But even just during that phase, it could be something that they take steps to fix, and that could affect them forever.
So my take is, if my child comes home, my son says he's a girl, I will say, you're not a girl. You have been lied to by bad people. You are not a girl. It is not possible for you to be a girl. Is that wrong?
I don't know that it's wrong. I think every parent would have sort of a different way of looking at it. My son, when he was 3, said he was George Washington. I didn't immediately try to talk him out of it. I just let him go with being George Washington for a little while. But I didn't let him take his sword to school. And, I think there has to be sort of boundaries of what you will allow. I think every family will have a different sort of reaction. They might say, yeah, you're not a girl, or if you're a boy and you say you're a girl, you're not a girl. But, let's talk about what that means to you. Let's talk about why you think you might be a girl. If a lot of times it's actually often girls saying that they feel like they're a boy, and the explanation comes back things like, I'm good at sports, or I feel like I don't want to wear dresses. And you could say to them, well, you don't have to wear dresses. Go ahead, wear pants. That doesn't make you a boy.
Yeah, because that feeds into my earlier point. They don't know what it is to be the other sex.
Right.
Liking sports doesn't make you a boy.
Absolutely. And it also might be just a cry for attention. I often say that if I were a teenager right now, I would be switching my pronouns from day to day. There would be no doubt about it. If I could have my teachers have to call me a new pronoun every day, that kind of power I would be.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Super into that.
All right, folks. Stolen Youth. It's an important book. She's an important thinker. Karol, congratulations.
Thank you so much, Dennis.
Yeah. Let it never be said that Americans were not warned during this era. Back in a moment. Dennis Prager here. Thanks for listening to the Daily Dennis Prager Podcast. To hear the entire 3 hours of my radio show, commercial-free, every single day, become a member of Pragertopia. You'll also get access to 15 years' worth of archives, as well as the daily show prep. Subscribe at pragertopia.com.